This is lab 6.3 GenAI, and in this lab we are going to be using ChatGPT to help us allocate support department costs with the dreaded reciprocal method, the most difficult method that we have. So the first thing we're going to do is open up a new ChatGPT window. And when I'm working on something uncommon like this, I sometimes question whether ChatGPT or a similar program will even know what I'm talking about. So the first thing I like to do is just ask it, from a cost accounting perspective, tell me what it means to allocate support department costs to production departments. And based on its response, I can get some confidence that, it knows kind of what I'm talking about. And so based on this particular problem, I know that I'm going to need ChatGPT to help me come up with a system of equations to solve one of these support department cost allocation problems. I've got 3 support departments, and I explain how these support departments are interrelated. So maintenance must allocate $120,000, but they have 15% of IT costs, 10% of purchasing costs, and so on and so forth. And what I'm trying to get are these 3 equations that I will then use to solve this allocation problem. Okay, and it has given me some background information, why we're using the reciprocal method, when we would use the reciprocal method, and it's spot on here. And the equations it came up with are 120,000 plus 15% of IT costs plus 10% of purchasing costs, which mirrors what I had up above. So far, so good. Well, now let's see if it can solve these equations. I'm just going to put in the chat, please solve this system of equations. Okay, we're getting an answer. And I'm looking through this, and these are pretty close. It's not exactly what I have, but it's pretty close. And I think it's a rounding issue, because if we were going to add all these together, I don't think it would add up to all of our costs because of rounding. So I'm going to tell it, hey, I'm worried about rounding. Will you please take this out several decimals and resolve? All right, this is actually much more precise. So next thing we're going to do is explain how our production departments should be allocated these support department costs. This is all based on the original case. So machining, for instance, should get 35% of maintenance, 30% of IT, 35% of purchasing, and we also go through assembly and finishing. So what are the total costs allocated to each production department? And it looks like it came up with some answers here. We've got 129,087 to machining, 96,567 to assembly, and 44,345 to finishing. All right, well, this is exactly what I was going to put in next. What is the sum of these allocated amounts? It has already summed these up for us, and we get $270,000, which is the initial amount of our support costs. So that's great. We can skip that next step. Now let's come up with some data visualizations. So can you create a table that displays the amount allocated by each support department to each production department, and we want it to round to the nearest penny? Okay, so we get a nice table, and this all looks good. But I also want to see something that's a little more visually appealing. So let's get a stacked bar chart as well that shows the total costs allocated to each production department broken down by the different support departments. Okay, so here we see we've got 3 support departments, maintenance, IT, and purchasing, and how these costs are allocated to each of our production departments. If we wanted to, I'm sure we could add amounts to each one of these blocks so that we were more precise or better able to display the cost information. But all in all, it's a really helpful chart. So this worked pretty well in ChatGPT. We did have to make sure that it wasn't rounding so that we got precise values. I can tell you that a few ChatGPT models ago, this didn't work. It wasn't able to easily allocate support department costs using the reciprocal method. But with the newer versions of ChatGPT, we really didn't have any major issues. And this is far easier to do in ChatGPT than it would be to use the solver function in Excel or something similar.